Let's take a look at how family dynamics play into us seeking out love and how it shapes our template for sexual desire. And as we look at the family dynamics, we all have our own experiences of it. I mean, I can remember as a kid, the movies and the shows and the songs and everything about love. And I mean, how you were with really, really young, maybe with girls if you're a boy or boys if you're a girl, and how you relate to the opposite sex. And then there's the cultural phenomenon. And, in the training, we use this term like a drift, a water that we swim in, like a collective unconsciousness that we're not aware of, as though, your family has a drift. The culture you grew up in is a drift. The U.S. has a drift, distinct from, let's say, a India drift. And that drift shapes how we see the world. And as an example of this, I work with, let's say, a certain type, maybe from the Northeast in the United States, or let's say they're Middle Eastern, and you could almost tell how they're going to be in relating to relationship, in relating to sex, the compulsions that they may have. I could see threads of that from what I learned from family members, older cousins. And then you combine that family dynamic with that drift where you grew up at. I don't know this to be true, but I can assert, based on some evidence of people I've worked with, that somebody's going to have a very different view sexually and about what sex means, and based on the culture they grew up in. But let's say someone that grew up close to New York City, distinct from somebody that grew up in Wichita, Kansas. It's just a different drift. So if we understand that our family dynamics and the family we grew up in is a certain type of drift, you start to realize a lot of, let's say, men that struggle with sex compulsions, one of the characteristics that they nearly, if not all, have, they were never given the talk. They were never given the intimacy talk by their dad. They were never like, hey, this is how you be intimate and love someone. They never get the talk. So now they're forced to pick up cues about sex from the culture, from their family, the unspoken parts. And now they have to piece together some type of plan, if you will, or some type of strategy on how I'm going to get and acquire love and sex. For some, it might be love through sex. For others, it might be just sex without love. Others, it might be just love. And obviously the sex component is a piece of it as well. But for people that were never taught this and you're left to navigate, they typically take on the ideas of the drift. So like some of the drift ideas, even now, a high value man is someone who has a lot of money and can sleep with a lot of women. Well, that might work for someone in their 20s if that's all that they wanted to do. I had my own journey with that as well. That's not going to work for a long-term intimate relationship. So if you haven't been taught how to be intimate, that's going to run out in the honeymoon phase of the relationship when somebody, like you can only fly them on your private jet and wine and dine so much where, and then when you settle down and you move in together and they go to the bathroom next to you, they fart and get sick, and they have all the bodily functions that all humans have. It very much changes the scope, and that doesn't translate many of the ideas or concepts around seeking love and sexuality that the drift and the culture presents. So it's harder and harder for people to really have an intimate, monogamous relationship. It's in some ways even shunned. It's not even sexy anymore because of so much of the culture, so much of the, whether you want to call it the MTV culture or the Playboy culture, all that we grew up on. I mean, I was listening to breakup love songs when I was like 8. I can remember when I was 6 years old watching these dramas and love sagas, and where do we get that from? That that is learned very much. And I, from early on, my own experience was I felt like the sex drive was so everywhere. It's like everyone was obsessed with it, and I you almost really can remember early on not having a family that navigated that and talked about it. It was kept under the rug, if you will. You just didn't talk about it in an Italian family or a Italian Syrian heritage. It just wasn't, that was a certain drift. So I very early on saw all this hypersexualization of the world and took it on myself. Now, that's how family dynamics plays in. And then really what that key component of family dynamics is, what did we learn about intimacy from our parents? What did we learn about how to be intimate, not just sex? And then what is love and what is a relationship for? And are we trying to find our better half, or is a relationship about two people that have recognized their own wholeness coming together to express that wholeness? Did we learn that from our family? Was that passed down from generation? Did we learn that from the culture around us, and how that shaped us seeking out love, and then also what our template is for sex, for sexual desire, and how we relate to that in our own sexuality?